Yes, the meeting is being recorded. Got you all. Okay. Thank you. So Kelly, you last, lucky last?
No. We've got Anne and Anna.
Okay. Anne, how do you feel and what do you hope to take out of today's meeting? You're muted.
Right, thank you, John. Right now it's about more acceptance of how little I know. Because we're talking about education today, and it's been 35 years that we've been teaching, and even then we've been challenging a lot of things about where education should go and the boundaries of it, and we've been pushing it. And even then, when I read what Bucky wrote, I don't understand what I'm doing now, you know. So I expect to get more clarity with that, and maybe even the area to really focus on, because we've been shifting the paradigm of education, and so I'm quite excited to see where else it can shift towards. Right? Okay, Anna, how do you feel, and what do you expect?
I feel very happy. Well, last week I missed the session. I'm always happy joining you guys, and I want to learn as much as I can so that I can, and put forward all whatever I've learned to the new school before the new school being set up. And with all of you here teaching me and guiding me, I can do it. Okay, Stanley, how do you feel and what do you expect today?
Thanks, Anna. Hi, guys. I'm feeling great. I'm happy to be here because last week I missed. I have something on to go to do. I'm glad to be here. But how do I feel? A little bit conflicted at the moment. I mean, on the surface, work-wise, I feel great. It's exciting. A lot of things are happening. So I'm looking forward to that. Personally, I'm a bit conflicted. Maybe I'll just share a little bit on what am I conflicted about. It's about the vaccination. I have been putting off the vaccination for the longest time now. I'm trying my best to avoid it. If possible, I don't want to go ahead with it. But as how it seems in my country right now, they may pass the law that if you don't get vaccinated, your quality of life is going to drop. You're not allowed to play sports. You're not allowed to travel. You're not allowed to dine in. So yeah, I'm a little bit conflicted. Right. On one end, I don't want to vaccinate. On the other end, I don't want to lose my quality of life. So yeah, maybe I can get some clarification or some inspiration from one of you guys here. But I'm looking forward to learn more from what we have today. Okay, passing it on. Stephen, how do you feel and what do you expect from today's session?
Well, Stanley, you know how to pull the plug out of the air, my man. I mean, honestly, and I know Susan Cortese, I don't want to speak for her, but she's in the thick of it where she's at. And I like this Bucky call because for me, this brings me back to the micro, which is me. It's my universe, dude. It's your universe. So the question that I am continually asking myself when I wake up in the morning is, Creator says to me, what do you want today? So you're asking exactly the right question. And I don't know if there's any answer anywhere for it. So I don't know. Listen, I just played at a rock and roll concert out in a park with a rock and roll band, St. Thomas Axis. 52 years, me and my 4 guys have been playing. 52 freaking years. And this is t-shirts made out of a poster we had back in the day. And what was really cool was in the middle of the set, we performed a song, Good Things, which I wrote and was a local hit in 1968 in Utah, up at the Wasatch Front. We sold thousands of records and came this close to being famous. And now I got to cope with a freaking vaccine, dude. I have no freaking idea. If I wish I had an answer. And I think this is, I think the Bucky conversations are at the core of what this is all about. And I think that I wrote a song, 25, I call it the Buddha song. It's called I'm Alone. Like a bird on the wing, I just fly. I got no place to land, so I don't even try. I wrote that song 30 freaking years ago, and you know, it's absolutely freaking true. I know, as much as I like to think that you guys are my buds, and as I love you guys like my family, and I'm here to support you, and I know you're here to support me because we have this conversation, but dadgummit, I'm alone. And Stanley, God bless you, my friend. You know, I don't know. I was thinking all Bucky until you brought that down. And I think that's what Bucky is about. Bucky's about, why am I here? What is the universe anyway? What is scenario, right? What is micro? What is macro? What is my story, right? Phew, I wish I had something more to say to that. Joseph, have you spoken yet, my friend?
Yeah, Susan, Raffier, or Nelson?
Well, no one better to call on than Susan. I'm handing you the vaccination lantern, Susan. You can avoid it if you want to. How are you feeling, and what do you expect out of the day?
I'm feeling happy to connect with you folks. Stanley, I'd be happy to talk with you offline because I'm running through it. By November 1st, I may lose the privilege to work at all the hospitals that I'm at right now unless I submit to the vaccination. I'm writing a big term paper trying to codify my religious exemption. And in that vein, I was just talking with one of my patients. Her husband's a pastor, and she wanted to bring me back around to that, and I was happy to go with her. And they said, well, if you don't belong to a church anymore, how do you get your spiritual encouragement? And I told them that I have an international group of like-minded individuals who study the universal design of the Creator, and that I am definitely spiritually encouraged. And Nelson, how do you feel? What would you like to get out of today?
Thank you, Susan. Thank you all for this call. I'm feeling good and very exciting. And my expert today is to learn more about evolution of educations. So, thank you. That I feel and my expect. Kelly, what do you feel and what do
Raffers, have you gone?
expect?
Yeah, you
Yes.
did.
Yes, I have.
Lisa, you want to finish? You want to complete?
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, I don't know where you lost me, but anyway, I'm feeling that I'm glad to be back here and to connect to our international world. And Susan, I absolutely love that study the universal design of the Creator. That's awesome. So really what I'm looking to get out of the call today is just reconnect to where we're up to and catch up so that I can be a full participant. Kelly, how do you feel and what would you like to get out of today?
It's a funny all day for me. I get what everyone's saying, and then I get worried about things like hyperinflation, the 60% the increase in the housing and all of that stuff. And my niece got married today, and I'm thinking, oh, the world's still going somewhere. And then I ring my brother 5 minutes before this call. And I said to him, how you going with all these building prices? Because he's been in the building industry for 30 years and he's designed stuff for 30 years. He said, fantastic. And I said, what about all the buildings and the building costs going up to 60 cents? He said, that's fantastic. He said, because I'm going to cut the shit out of the price. He said, I'm not going to be building with studs and all that stuff. He said, I'm going to be bricking the world together and we're going to have the price of all housing on the world. And he believes it. And so he's, it's like, okay, let's get on with it. So, just when, I'm in Stanley's shoes, all of a sudden I get in Gordon's shoes, and Gordon's, it's like, it couldn't be better right now, fellas. Technology and the way we're going to build, it's all a buzz. So, I talk about conflicted. You come off one thing, and then all of a sudden you got this guy that's so freaking high. I think he's on the moon. He's in Reno. He's building a factory in Reno, and everything through this COVID, if anything could go wrong, it's gone wrong. His shipping out of Germany's gone wrong. His plant's gone wrong. They can't get it. And now in Reno, where he's building his factory, there are all the fires and he can't get hooked up to the electricity. And his thing is, oh, I'll get a generator. I'll do this, I'll do that. Let's get it done. So, you know, I came off this call to come to this call. So I'm feeling pretty enthusiastic after that call. So there you go. Shall we get on to this call? I'm finding it hard not to smile when I listen to him. So there you go. I'll share my screen. And let's see if I can get the right one first up. Sunday message. I think that's it there. Oh no, that's not it. So stop sharing. What the hell have I done? Okay, that's it. Okay, this is it. You know, for me, this one here, there's not a lot of words, but it says an awful lot, I think. Okay. Here we go. Why is it not showing up? There we go. Apologies. Can everyone see that now?
Not yet.
Nope,
What the hell?
you're not sharing actually.
Why is it?
Go out of sharing and come back.
Yeah, I'll do that now. I just got to get to the screen. There you go. I was so excited I got put off. Okay, so let's stop that again and let's start again. And are we on now?
Good.
Yep.
Yep.
Hallelujah. My apologies. There you go. Just wasted a minute of your life. Okay. Okay. So John, can you read?
Yes, I can read. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, let's go.
An extract from Emergent Humanity, Its Environment and Education from Richard Buckminster Fuller on education. Humanity is beginning to transform from being utterly helpless and only subconsciously coordinate with important evolutionary events.
Okay, so what's he really saying right there? It's really important to understand this.
Humanity is awakening.
There's awakening going on, but what's he distinguishing?
Evolution.
He's doing that, but he's saying utterly helpless and only subconsciously coordinated.
Yeah. So becoming more aware and conscious.
We're becoming more, and when we're making a decision now, we're making a decision based on being aware and conscious.
Yes.
More directed.
And
Yes.
yeah, yes. And so when you start to look at that and you listen to the conversation that's gone on in this call, we're conflicted about do I or don't I with a needle. So what's that?
We are consciously considering the issues involved and making more informed decisions.
Yes.
Mhm.
And what's the obstacle that's in our way?
The truth.
Is it
Having the information we really require, having all the information we really require.
Yeah, but I would also say it might be, there's still so much we don't know about the human body, about all sorts of things. So it's also perhaps our lack of knowledge.
or what about the subconscious conditioning?
Mm.
So now all of a sudden we say we're looking for the truth, but what truth are you talking about? Steve said it very quickly. He said, I'm all alone. Yet we're all alone. We're all alone with the conditioning.
Yeah.
I see a wall. I actually see a wall between the first part of the statement and the second part of it, because the idea of human beings from from being helpless, right? Because I think because the biggest struggle that we've been having with going on the ground with dealing with kids and parents is this whole focus on the academic process, right? And I feel that being purely academic, especially in Asia, it creates a lot of helpless human beings because they literally cannot use the information. They cannot connect information. And that's the majority in Asia. So that's that wall between what is happening in education versus what's happening. Like, you're right, it's subconscious, coordinating with what's going on around the world and what's happening with the human race and everything. It is subconsciously done and not deliberately or consciously done. Yeah, and the thing is that education is mistaken to be. There's another wall there that in Asia, I've met so many people. They are done with education the minute they're done with education, but it's not. We are continuously learning, and then that's when we are consciously learning the things we don't know. All right, when you're in education and going through the process, you are learning, but that's being kind of pushed on you. Right? I don't know if I'm making sense there, but
well, you're going right back to Fuller Design when he talks about we have to be very, very careful of the beginning of life. And so when you're looking at it and you're saying the very second that there's a conception of a child, it starts. That's the preconditioning starting point. And so when you're looking at what you're talking about, where are they at by the time that a child gets to your school? And so when we're starting to look at it from a pure design point of view, and we're saying, I've got all this preconditioning, it's already there.
Yep.
But now what he's saying, transform utterly helpless and only subconsciously coordinated. We're now starting to question it. And as we question it, and you say, the wall's coming down or in, it's like you're saying, hang on a second here, what's going on in here? And the question is, what do you really need or require for you to function in universe where you're at?
To knock the walls down.
What's that?
To knock the walls down. Anne was talking about. So I'm a street guy, yeah. I mean, like hanging out with you guys makes me feel like a freaking superstar because I'm not an academic. I didn't get educated by the system, and I've shut my mouth most of my life because I'm the dumb guy. But I've also put myself in places where I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. And one thing I've noticed as I sit back and observe. And somebody that likes talking to his subconscious, but doesn't talk about it because it's woo-woo, or the academics think, yeah, mate, you read too many books or you've taken too many drugs in your life. Now, those walls that a lot of people have built up, the way I see it is they've invested so much of their lives in not living a life and experiencing life. So that's a wall. So they've studied their whole lives to go to uni because that was the expectation. Another wall. Then all as these walls are starting to topple, there's so many people that are holding on to them so strongly because they've invested their whole lives in building them, but they're unconscious. Their subconscious is now talking to them and saying, listen, there's more out there. There's people like in this group are seeing it and knowing that these walls aren't that good, but then there's 2% here, but then there's the rest of the world that are like, no, I've freaking put everything in these walls. You are wrong. This is not wrong. I've invested my whole life in these walls. I'm not letting go of these walls. And that's what's stopping, I think, us moving forward is the power that can control the toppling of these walls are too freaking blind to see that these walls are bullshit that they've built their whole lives and they're holding on to them because they can.
Yeah. Philemon, I want to say something here. And I hope I'm not getting on my soapbox. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It really makes so angry on a daily basis when I deal with a lot of the parents because, it's not that, you're not academic or you're not smart and so on and so forth, right? It's because the silly education system just doesn't suit most people. And it actually failed the boys. It failed to serve the boys. It failed to serve the children, And I push this at the parents. I say, look, you want to know why we will never, never, ever get our kids to be all straight A kids to be brilliant. It's because of the stupid bell curve. I'm sorry, I get so angry at it. You know, the stupid bell curve, right? I say, you know what it means? Every time, like, look, your kids are way more and no more than we ever did when we were young, right? So, and yet, why are they getting the A's? It's because the bell curves keeps moving to the right. The more your kids get smart, it keeps moving, and the A's will still be there, and the average kids will still be there when they're no longer average. I'm like, come on, guys, don't you get it? So, yes, please, I want to topple that wall. We've been working towards toppling that wall. All right. And one of the biggest things I've been questioning, and I've been asking parents, and we are doing something about it. Yeah. Is this because I had this one boy at 10 years old, he was doing this, his own hydroponics little business. And, you know, he was able to even talk to his mom and said, Mom, we cannot plant siu pak choy because siu pak choy is only 2 ringgit plus, which is equivalent to about 80 cents US cents, right? For 200 grams. We should plant kale because kale is 12 ringgit, equivalent to about $3 US. You know, at 10 years old, he was talking like that. Right there is economics for you, right? So, and he knew how to plant. He knew literally he's applying physics and chemistry and biology, etc. And he was selling. He had a business model going. So I'm like, this kid at the age of 16, what he knows will have zero value in the eyes of academia. All right. His IGCSE paper is going to be of greater value, all right, than what he already picked up. So right now we are working towards having every skill being certified and being, that they have their competencies valued. All right, to the point where we are looking at the weightage and things like this. We are actually collaborating with Finland on this. Yeah, just so you all know that I'm looking for.
So and when you're talking about that, and we need to keep moving, but
yeah.
In my mind, why do they need to be certified if they know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's the point.
But you see, that goes right back into the preconditioning of the value of a certification rather than the value. Like one of Fuller's favorite sayings was, you know, why do I need to write it down if I already know it?
Mhm.
So you would see him talk for hours and hours and hours without notes because he says it's part of who I am. And what you're talking about is this young fellow who's got the hydroponics, it's who he's become. Right.
See,
and at that moment, it's like, does he need to be certified or does he just need to be acknowledged and not and encouraged?
Okay. The one thing that I know we're doing well, you know, in our school is having that midpoint, something parents can accept. You see, because you know, even though the boy did that, the parents still pull him out from the school, even though we have certification moving forward into a school that's focusing purely on academics.
Yeah, but again, now you're dealing with the subconsciously coordinated.
Correct.
And so the way around subconsciously coordinated surely has got to be, this is the way we're going to do it. This is you're in the middle of an experiment right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah.
I don't want to take the passion out of it, but it seems to me that we're still dealing with the subconsciously coordinated.
Okay, sure.
Okay, keep going, John.
We've gotten ourselves into much trouble, but at the critical transformation stage, we are reaching a point where we are beginning to make some measurements, beginning to know a little something. We are probably coming to the first period of direct, consciously assumed responsibility of humanity in the universe.
Okay, so Anne, doesn't that describe what you just described?
Yes, it does.
So this young fella is conscious, he's very conscious. And just think of the things that you said. He knows the difference between growing bok choy to kale. Those are measurements.
Yeah.
And he knows various things that are going on, and he's learned it through experience. And no doubt he will eventually learn that in hydroponics, you want to keep your pond clean. Because if it wipes out one plant, it wipes out all plants. So all of those things are experiences, right? And so now when he goes and he explains it to his parents, as he explains it to his parents, they're not coordinated like that. Our kids are coordinated like that. Hallelujah. And so at some moment, I think that this generation of children have the ability of consciously assuming responsibility. And look what's going on right now. Look at who's really kicking up the fuss around a lot of the global problems.
Kenny, I just want to say in that paragraph that we're at the critical transformation stage. We're starting to reach a point where we are beginning to make some measurements, beginning to know a little something. I think that the lag is shortening. Science is starting to realize some of the stuff humanity knew in its essence, in its subconscious. Like I knew 20 years ago or so to talk to my plants, my vegetable garden, and they're going to be more. I've got 89 plants in this office and I talk to them every day. But 3 years ago, a study came out where if you talk to your plants, science proved it. Science is so far behind. And I think that's where we're getting to what that paragraph says, the transformation stage, is the lag is shortening where science is starting to prove some of the stuff mystical teachers and they call it the subconscious or God, the universe, Buddha, this and that have been saying for centuries. And science is still...
But they've been saying it for centuries, but what he's saying here is we can now measure it. We know this to be true.
Yeah.
So before, when you're saying, oh, I talk to my plants and they seem to be okay, now you can measure and say, gee, it put out more tomatoes this year because you have measurement.
Yeah.
And the more we start to measure, the more we can quantify what you're talking about. And isn't that what he's saying there right now? So rather than saying, it's taken us a while to get to this moment, and as we get to this moment, what are we going to do?
So
we got to encourage it forward. We got to go from the conscious, not the subconscious. I think that's what he's saying. Comments or questions?
We can't trust.
Okay. First, if we take this text of Bucky, that is 50 years ago.
Yes.
We are no more at the beginning. I think that we're somewhere well in between. The second thing that has to do, and especially address Anne, is this. If we've been doing some measurements, it means that we know something, a little bit of something. Now, you can't bring that back into a comparison with a standard that we know is not what we want. In other words, you can't compare your hydroponic agriculture guy to the A standard of a school system. No. Education is a process. And because it's a process, it yields something, an influence, and there's feedback until you reach a certain critical mass. So you just have to keep doing your thing and doing your thing with other like-minded. Really, unless they come to crush you, don't care.
Manu, would you say it's a process? Would you say the process is a process of conditioning?
Yes.
Education, like when you say there's a process going on, and when we know a little bit about something, could it be that there's something that we know we're looking to say we're going to condition people to understand this? Like
exactly. That's why the critical mass of people adhere to it. You know, and then it's come again to something that we talk about about the vaccine. You know, if you look at Pasteur in Paris, he had to inject himself with that thing to prove that, in actual fact, this is what is going to be. I've injected on myself, and then after that, people started adhering to it. Adherence to it was now conditioning. It was not like they were trying to demonstrate the ethics or whatever of it. It's just that they say if a fellow human is injecting himself and is getting better at this condition, therefore it's good for me. So I better try it. So that is to me what I call the process and the conditioning of. And when you condition, you count again, you are able to measure, and you measure, you can see that at one point it's going to tip because you've reached a critical point.
That goes to your bell curve.
Mhm.
So when we're thinking about this process, we start to look at the macro and the micro of the process, and ultimately, a process is looking to arrange a form of some sort, right? And when you get down to the conditioning, would the conditioning be what you would call AM tuning, Manu?
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between the AM and the FM tuning?
Okay, simple. The AM is about the form. It's the whole stuff. You are mimicking something of a form. Say, recognition of humans, of our species, is AM conditioning. If I learn to recognize a baby, learn to recognize his mother AM-wise. Now, the metabolic rhythm within comes from division, is FM. You are digitizing to understand and to count the frequency of it coming, and that's FM. Did that make sense?
So there's a lot of FM coming in, which is noise to the AM.
Yes.
If everyone can understand that. So when you're starting to look at it, we're saying there's this conditioning. There's a new conditioning going on the planet right now, and this idea that that's going on. And all I can see with all this vaccine and all this globalization is taking away the as Steve would say, the sovereign right of the individual in a proximity. Does that make sense, Manu? Say
again, please.
Wherever you are, it doesn't matter where you are on the planet right now, your sovereignty is being affected by this virus.
Yes.
And so when we start to look at it from that point of view, it's like we're piling up on the conditioning of who you should be and what you should do, because you've got to consider that. I mean, I got to worry about Philemon, for gosh sakes. I mean, the guy's not terribly bright, but I got to worry about him.
Be careful. I can remember you 30 years ago, and you weren't nearly as smart as you are now.
Yeah, no, I get it, but that's the point. It's like, come on, I got to take care of him. And at some moment, that's where it goes into the subconscious, not the conscious. And I know that myself, I had this moment in my workshop in Perth, John, when I was that guy 30 years ago. And I remember it was something as simple as a hacksaw, guy cutting away with a hacksaw. And I'm sitting there and I was so impatient. And I said, give me the effing hacksaw, get the F out of the way and let me, and I ended up doing it. And then I went away and said, see, that's how you do it. And then I sort of thought, oh, well, he'll do that again. He'll do it tomorrow. But you know what he did the next day? Handed me the hacksaw.
Exact. Do it.
Do it. You want to do it, you do it. And I realized at that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, this person has got to make his own mistakes. I can't do that. And from that moment, I literally changed and said, let the people do what they, in my organization, do what they need to do to get the experience they need to be part of this business.
Yeah.
Yes, we have training programs and all the rest of it, but people learn at different rates, and you learn it very quickly. When he handed me that hacksaw back, and I thought, that's when I worked out the job of a business owner is to sit down, watch, observe, direct. not do.
What I'm excited about what you said there, Kelly, and I want everybody to get into this. That is exactly the difference between, I mean, it has explained the amplitude modulation and the frequency modulation right there. When Kelly was observing, he was being impatient. He was amplitude. He had no idea about how difficult it was to really handle the hacksaw. Now, the next day is 100. Now, the next day, that is lag. It's counted, it's divided, you do it. From that, he got an experience. He did a measurement. And he could never express himself anymore the same afterwards. He could distinguish the two. He's already drawn a lesson that is, what is the job of a business owner as compared to the workers in?
Yeah,
And to me, that is exactly what they talk about when they talk about AM and FM. We've so conditioned that we talk, but we don't seem to, we tend to be confused by the two. That is as simple as that. That's what it is.
Yeah, well, let's keep going and we can bring it back later.
Okay. Ready, Kelly?
Yeah, go for it.
Human beings sort, classify, and order in direct opposition to entropy.
Okay, well, so what's he saying right there?
We create order in what is previously random.
We are anti-anthropic. That's what he said.
Is what he's saying is you don't want it to burn out. You don't want it.
Yes.
You want to maintain it.
Mhm.
You see, how could that person ever be better than me if I'm always doing it?
Yeah.
I'm entropic at that moment. Would you say, Manid?
Yeah.
I become anti-entropic when I pass on the skill.
Yeah.
Comments or questions? There's a very, very important thing being said there. Opposite to entropy. So we're taught all day long, go out, go out, go out. Radiate, radiate, radiate. Be positive, be positive, be positive. And what's going on all around us right now is burnout.
Yeah.
Because we're burning out. Does that make sense, Manu?
I mean, I agree to this. This is one of the things that really hooked me with Bucky. And it's also important to observe here the lag of this and the decision that is innate. We're born with the capacity to decide. Human beings sort, classify, order in direct opposition to entropy. Hidden underneath, it is that you require work.
So
and the principles of natural laws are in there.
Yeah.
If you decide to sort, classify, order, you are using some energy. It has to come from some storage.
So the challenge at the moment with this genetic injection, because I refuse to call it a vaccine because I haven't isolated the thing to inoculate against, but it's a genetic injection. We are being compelled, forced, bribed, blackmailed, and bludgeoned. We cannot do what you just said, Manu. We cannot sit and go, I'm a thinking human being and I choose to take this or not take it, whatever the case is. We have that choice. And if you want to take it, that's great. If you don't want to take it, that's great. But our society is condoning by silence, for the most part, totalitarianism, dictatorship, and medical, what's the word they had in South Africa?
Tyranny.
Tyranny. But no, it's beyond that. We're not allowed to think. We're not allowed to question. We're supposed to accept whatever censored version we're given. We're supposed to ask only the questions that they've given us that we can ask with the pre-prepared answers. And there's no acknowledgement of what you just said, Manu, that we are able to take measure. No, it's the wrong line. We can put order into chaos. We can make decisions. And, you know, I forget the gentleman's name who's being forced and coerced to make a decision on the vaccine at the start of the call. But Stanley. So the spiritual crisis that represents, that the world is accepting the force of an opinion of someone to say, you must do this, you must do that. And society is bowing to that. That is negating our spiritual heritage as abilities to choose. That is
again, Pete, you're talking about you're talking about conscious right now, your conscious awareness. And what we're being driven is subconscious coordination. And what we're talking about is how do you design your way past that? Mm-hmm. So everything you're saying, we can all feel. The problem is, how do you change that through design? First of all, we all acknowledge that it's here on this call. We all acknowledge that. But that's the very thing that we're talking about. Exactly what you're saying now is what we're talking about, is how do we consciously get about it? And you can see it. There's a conscious recalcitrance all over the planet right now.
As there should be.
Well, we can say as there should be. Go ahead.
We're in an entropic world. The information is being radiated to you all the time. And as human beings, you got to sort, classify, and order it. That's your job.
Yep.
That's what he's saying.
But I will add that. In actual fact, that's not where the problem is. Individually, you are perfectly capable of deciding and assuming the consequences of deciding A and B. Second, it's important that there will be the yay and nays in the process, because it's always been like that. Then we go through that. I might be the sacrificial lamb if I choose camp A, and camp A is I don't know what it is, but well, that's it. That's the process of Veritas. There's always that contradiction. That progresses, and future generation will take conscious decisions, knowing, or take conscious position, knowing what we've gone through. To that, whether you want it or not, there are people taking vaccine. Let's see what becomes of them.
The actual problem is not about actually taking it or not taking it, because that's actually people exercising the sovereign right to choose. The actual problem is that what we considered, what is actually governments, what we have put, well, technically put there to actually guide us through an organized society and deciding what we could do or not if we choose A or B. There should not be actually, you can't do that if you choose A, you can't do that if there's B. That's actually violating your sovereign right to choose.
And to add,
I agree with you, but the question, that's not the point here.
Call me. It's not like it's my patient directly, but apparently they needed somebody.
Susan, you're not on mute.
So she is, I think.
You can mute it, Kelly.
When I get to the controls, I can.
Can I just bring it back to something? I'm a little confused about what entropy is. That on the page it says it's the law of increase of the random element. But I also looked it up and there's two other meanings: lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder. And then there's the physics one, a thermodynamic quantity, blah, blah, blah. So what is entropy?
I had to do the same thing as you, Lisa. I had to Google it to catch up.
Is it just that decline into disorder? Is that
it's moving away.
Okay.
One's coming together, one's moving away. And so when you look at it as a form, it's coming together as a form or it's moving away as a form. And so when you're looking at it from an energetic point of view, it's dissipating.
Okay.
It's moving out.
It's expanding. Think of a loaf of raisin bread that's rising. All the raisins are moving away from all the other raisins. It's not like there's a central point from which everything's expanding. That's probably true too. But even the raisins are moving away from themselves. There's more and more nothingness between the facts we know because there's more and more facts to know.
And there's more
It's like a
questions
giant
because of what we do
fractal.
know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a giant fractal. And we think, oh, I need to know this and this. Well, as soon as I know this and this, the entropy has created even more to know. There's even more to know. The solution is not learning the facts. The solution is learning that I am the design. I am a fractal of the design of the universe. I already know. And if I look outside of me, and this is, I think, if I may get on my soapbox, as a teacher, if I think I'm giving something to a student, I'm already lost. When as a teacher, what I'm doing is showing the student how to open the door so they can see what's in them to solve this problem.
Yeah, I always say it like this, Steve. We're born with this capacity. Now what we're learning is our capability.
Exactly.
And so as if we look at this, that each one of us has this capacity, and John's quite right. He's saying 30 years ago, man, I could hardly spell my own name. But I increased my capability, not my capacity. It was always there. It's always there for you to do, and you can do it. And so
we have the capacity. We have the capacity to explore the whole finite universe.
Yeah, but it now comes.
We have been a journey in between of developing our capability to recombine it, divide it into as many as possible. It's like a toolbox. You know, the more tools or the more things that you know that solve particular situation in terms of description, the better you are, especially if you have the speed and the pace of execution. In other words, retrieving and storing. Your speed of retrieval and storage, if it's increased, then the number of cases that you have, the better you'll be, because you'll be able to find what you need. Because to know something is to go into the detail of knowing the past and know how they relate. So your mind will relate it, and then you'll find it quickly, put it together, experiment it, or experience it, and continue. That is infinite.
And so how do we discover the details? Simple. We label it, then we calibrate it, and we relabel it. And then we recalibrate it, and we relabel it, and we're going deeper and deeper as everything is expanding.
So is that,
follow through, follow up, follow through.
so that labeling, that gives us the ability to put things in a box though too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it allows you to measure.
And then we divide it up once it's in the box. Then we recalibrate, we remeasure, we redefine. And the universe expands not because it's getting bigger this way, and it might be getting bigger this way. The universe expands because we're knowing a little bit more about something every day. We're going in. And the answers are in, they are not out.
But it's more to that, Steve. We're going in details, but we are recombining. We're making subsets. You know, tell me what is the difference between a cancerous cell and a normal cell. When you look at the cancerous cell, you see in the form of it, Susan, maybe I'm erring into stupidity here, but it is different from a smooth, what you call normal cell. That is a subset, that is the recombination of things into something else that you recognize. So not only do you go in detail, but you also go into wider within the universe, into creating myriads and infinite forms that you store and that you retrieve. for particular situations.
I want to say one more thing about this, because this idea of labeling, calibrating, relabeling, divide, divide, divide is absolutely critical. The jobs your children will have 5 years from now haven't even been invented yet. The jobs haven't been invented yet. The field of knowledge about when that job is located hasn't yet been defined. To teach a child facts without teaching them the metaphor of problem solving and teaching them the confidence that they have the capacity in them to choose as sovereign beings, then a robot will not survive. We don't need another robot. We need a human beingness.
Keep going, John, so we can get through this and we can get Steve on his labels.
I think due to increase of disorder, human beings as designed are obviously intended to be a success, just as the hydrogen atom is designed to be a success. The fabulous ignorance of humanity and our long wrongly conditioned reflexes have continually allowed the new life to be impaired, albeit lovingly and unwittingly. In other words, because we've been slow learners, we've led limited lives.
Is it slow learning, or it goes back to a design thing around conditioning and process? It's, you know, his thing is we're 1 million years into gestation.
Yeah.
But what's happened, Kelly, is that those in power have long sought to limit the knowledge available to those not in power. It was the church, it was the crown. They kept the knowledge and didn't educate and share knowledge with those who weren't in power. And that has delayed our evolution. And as he says, the fabulous ignorance of humanity and our long wrongly conditioned reflexes. So we have been conditioned, but often wrongly conditioned, and that has limited our lives. The comment, I think it was Stephen was talking about, the education system used to be based on the perfection model. If you could get 100% for your maths or your science, you were brilliant. But in fact, it's fatally flawed. The perfection model is so limited. What you want is the discovery model, where you ask questions and you explore and you learn things. Education is supposed to be a process of discovery, not rote learning. That's only happened in the last, that evolution from one to the other is the last 30 or 40 years. And it's still taking place. There's still a lot of what is taught in schools, especially to very young children, that is so out of date that it's limiting them.
John, when you talk about power and you say the powers to be, but really, if you look at it today, isn't power power is about a boundary, about how much you can hold inside something. And when you start to look at it and you start to say, let's look at the so-called powers of our economic structure and say, would the floods in countries still be the same floods if you didn't have bitumen roads? Would the cities break down as badly as they've broken down if they didn't have those bitumen roads, the buildings and everything else to cause a lot of the devastation? To me, that's, you're talking about power when it goes beyond. Look at what a flood does. It changes it changes the boundary of everything, and it doesn't discriminate and say, well, gee, we're not going to use the paved highway this time. It's going to go to the least line of resistance. And what we're seeing right now is the least line of resistance. And that to me is, now you're looking at power. So this thing impaired, albeit lovingly and unwittingly. You know, I'm sure the people that put in the lead pipes for plumbing thought they were doing a great job for humanity.
Yeah, and the dentists who put mercury in teeth thought they were doing the right thing. Right? So our limited knowledge at the time caused us to do things that damaged us and each other because of the limits to our then knowledge. But I mean,
isn't that the fabulous ignorance?
Yeah.
So when we look at it and we say, well, And instead of saying it's right or wrong, good or bad, it's like it's proven not to be a valid thing to be doing right now. I mean, when I look at all the floods in Germany and all the problems in Germany, you start to see that a lot of them happen in roadways. I mean, John, in Queensland, they had a flood in the middle of the Highlands when the dam broke. Right? When you look at it, it was all the infrastructure that caused the problem. Anyway, let's keep going. Our most important
task is to become as comprehensive as possible by intellectual conviction and self-debiasing, not through ignorant yielding, but through a progressively informed displacement of invalid assumptions and dogma by discovery of the valid data.
Okay, comments or questions?
No identification, no justification, no judgment. And look at things through that filter now.
Well,
Say that again, Philemon. Say it again.
Look at something through the filter of non-identification, non-judgment, and non-justification, and now make a decision. Once you've removed all traditional belief systems, social conditioning, personal conditioning, religious dogma, family traditions, now look at it through non-identification, non-judgment, and non-justification. You've removed yourself from the decision and all your bullshit.
Well, and you also, you see, I think that we try to get away from risk. Risk is risk. You know, you have to define it. So sooner or later, you have to take a risk and say, knowing everything I know, what am I going to do? And there will always be a risk. And the point about aggregation and re-aggregation is you're monitoring the risk to mitigate risk. Your job is to mitigate risk.
But what is risk? Now, a risk to a soldier is different to a librarian.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, a book falling from a high place is still going to hurt a soldier or a librarian.
Ultimately, you have to make a decision.
You've got a choice to make the decision. You get all of these factors that come into it, and you start to say to yourself, I'm going to take this risk. But do you consciously take the risk, or do you take the risk out of fear, which is subconsciously? If you're taking a risk and you're saying, I know all the parameters and I know what's going on, this is the risk I'm taking. Does that mean it's risk-free?
No.
No.
Never is.
Never is, yeah.
We're always kidding ourselves when we say there's no risk.
There's always a risk. And at some point, you got to make the decision. You got to pull the trigger. And you know, even with all the information, and therein lies the problem. People get put in between. Even with zillions of information, they can't make a decision. They get analysis paralysis. I've traded options. I've been in classes with David Novak, and he says that, you know, people can't pull the trigger. That's why they'll never become traders. Can't make a choice, even though it's solid. It's a hole in one. They won't do it.
And also risk is dependent on how many cookies you have in your cookie jar. If I've got more cookies than you in my jar, trust me, I'm going to take more risks. And we live in a world where the majority don't have many cookies in their jar.
Lemon, that is not taking, that is risk management. Taking risk is like a baby. I come and touch the pot on fire is hot.
Now I have an experience.
Yes.
Born without a pot.
So next time before I touch it, I wear gloves. Because I know that I'm going to be burned if I don't wear gloves.
You see, now we're starting to come into the world of what Fuller was talking about, what our experience is. And so we're saying, Am I willing to have that experience? Am I willing to have the experience of someone jabbing me with a needle? Now it's a choice.
And I don't think it's as correct to say, I know that I'll be burned. I think it's more correct to say, you know, last time I was burned and the probability is I might be burned, but I don't know. And I'm going to wear gloves.
And then the gloves melt and they melt to your hand.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah.
Then next time I change
I've learned that one too.
Next time I change gloves. But you see that you've already taken a corrective measure.
Yes.
Knowing what, you know, it might be a little bit of adjustment, you adjust it. You then come there with your naked hand.
And the risk has changed and your knowledge has changed.
Yes, because you're running the experiment at that moment. Oh, I touched the stove with my bare finger. Oh, why don't I put this rubber glove or whatever and touch it, and then the rubber melts for me.
Melts, yeah.
So you've got all of these things where your capability increases.
And then kids are growing up with induction stoves now, so they don't have the opportunity to burn their bloody hand on the stove.
Well, I mean, there'll be something else. But that's the point of aggregation and re-aggregation over time.
Also the evolution of Veritas.
See, now how does that fit into experience, experiment, subjective? See, the second you go to subjective, now you're starting to talk about, oh geez, that could be a risk, or there's no risk. I mean, I was watching the rugby last night and thinking I'm going to ring up Henry and give him a rev. It's the first minute in the second half. We're on the 1 meter line of New Zealand, about to score a try. And I'm thinking, get on the phone to Henry and give him a ring. I'm going to take a risk. 2 seconds later, the ball flips into a Kiwi's hands and they run it down the other end and they rattle up the score.
Oh, I wish you had called him, Kelly.
Yeah, so that I could face him today, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was all over baby blue.
For all those that need context, the All Blacks beat the Wallabies by a trouncing.
Yes, but 1 minute into the second half, it looked like I could be on the bookies and I should be there.
Yeah.
That's the risk.
Yeah.
And as funny as it sounds, subjectively, I'm sitting there going, "Wow, finally, Eden Park, and I'm going to shove it down Henry." No, It's not going to happen. At least I was smart enough through experience to realize that it wasn't going to happen that way. That's because of all of the conditioning that I've had. So subjectively, I want one thing. Objectively, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, like when I'm looking at this thing, I'm thinking it's really very important. That's why, from a design point of view, what you're saying, Philemon, is go to it with the idea of an experience. But can you expect something from your experience?
Yes.
I ask it every week as part of our design. What do you expect to get from today? Today is an experience.
Yeah.
And I want to tune people's mind into what it is that they want to head towards. Right? And that's an experiment. We run the experiment every week. And what a surprise. Every week, do we get something different come out?
Yes.
Yes.
Without fail. And so I might have this subjective reality. And most times when I listen to them, I think, oh, gosh, did we really talk about that? Right? But in the heat of it, I'm thinking, gee, this is really quite good. But then all of a sudden we start to look at it over and over again. It's very hard to watch it twice.
But you
And
see,
Go ahead,
this is
John.
about a progressively informed displacement of invalid assumptions and dogma by discovery of the valid data. Isn't that what we're doing every week?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so as part of a design, do we have to have a 4 of experience, experiment, subjective and objective? And do we have to look at it from a micro macro level?
Yes.
That's living. That's living. That is what you call living. We are in the arena of life. The arena of life. If you want to be a living, you can't win, you can't draw, you can't quit.
Yes, you've got to participate.
I don't think you can quit. Just think of the arena in Rome and the gladiators. You can win, you can lose, but you can't quit.
Yeah.
Now you are quit. You are,
Well,
if you try to quit,
tell
you are
the
eaten by
wall
lions.
dead on the 1 yard line. Anyway, I don't mean to be facetious, John. Keep going.
What we're going to what are experiences? What are experiments? What is subjective? What is objective?
Steve, am I starting to shine the light on them?
I'll tell you, the space is huge. Shine the light, brother.
But my point is, from where we're really heading, you can see where we got to at this moment, but this is really what we're designing right here. This form. Can you see that, Steve?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the double tetrahedron. Yeah.
So now when we're looking
That's the truth of it. That's the truth of it right there. And there's a human being inside of that octahedron.
Yes.
I mean, that's the truth of it right there. A year and a half, and I've been finally figuring that out. Screwing around with magnets, screwing around with Kelly and Manu and all you guys.
So
the truth.
what you're looking at is that as we go into design, we want it to hold its shape. And what we're really looking at is this, and all the component parts using words. Because words are in a formula that I've thought through, words are a leading calibrator. And so when we start to look at this thing here, even though it doesn't look like we've moved very far, we're actually starting to get words into a shape. Macro, micro, negative, positive, agreements, cooperation, collaboration, distribution. Now we're going into experiences, experiments, subjective, objective. And by the time we're finished, we'll have a design thing that we say, okay, are all of these taken care of? Because it goes back to what we talked about last week in terms of, critical thinking. And when we get into the critical thinking and we put the labels on the thinking, now we can measure it. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah. We put the labels on the thinking. Now we can measure it.
Yes.
And that's our goal. That's our goal here, is to create definitions. And when we're ready, are we ready? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we have to, man. Otherwise, I'm going to be here till midnight and I'm going to be in real trouble.
No kidding. I want to come back to Anna. If I just have a minute, I want to come back to Anne's.
Please,
comment.
it's your area now, definitions.
Wonderful. Because, the value of certification. What is the value of certification? Well, if we go back to the industrial educational system, certification was back then was learning the system, right? But the system's disintegrating right in front of us. It's disintegrating because entropy is is just happening everywhere. All the institutions are disintegrating. And it's going to come down to every human being needs to know that, well, at least this is my opinion. It's a metaphor. That double tetrahedron down there with that octahedron, that is the universe. I am that universe. You are that universe. Everything I need is in there. I am freaking alone. Now I can reach out and have brothers and sisters. I can reach out and have family. But if I look outside of me for anything of support, I am lost. You know, the Mayan calendar ended in 2012. And I have a reason to believe that it ended because the Mayans knew that time was going to be irrelevant. Since the 80s, human knowledge has been doubling every 18 months. If you look at Moore's law, you know, computer chips double in capacity every 18 freaking months. And that's going to continue until about 2030. And what's his name? Mikio Kaku. That dude is, you know, there's going to be a point where it doesn't matter how vast a computer chip is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Mayans knew it. We are in that time. It doesn't matter. What matters is you. What matters is me. So our goal here, let me get off my soapbox. I'm going to breathe deeply now. Our goal here is to come up with some definitions. Not that we know anything, but by having a definition for a word, it puts a handle on it. Now, each one of us can say, all right, let's go out and experience that word. Let's calibrate that experience for ourselves. Let's see if we can divide that word into subcategories. And when you as a teacher, and I'm talking to Anne and Anna, I'm so grateful you guys are here, and I'm talking to me, right? When I can teach someone to look inside and do that calibration, that's when I'm a victor. That's when I'm doing my job. So our job here is to create some definitions. Why? Certification and certain definitions is a starting place. And Kelly's goal is said, let's take some of these Bucky words that he defined in the 1960s and 70s. Let's put some new definitions on those based on our paradigm, based on what we know. So that's what we're struggling to do. Or not struggling, that's what we're having fun doing.
Start writing it down, Steve, or we're going to be here till midnight. So
all
I
right,
just don't want to how they feel and what they take away.
All right, well, good. Well, I just want to say, Kat has worked on a system where you guys can all put words into our Slack. So please check that out. All right, good. So Anna, and I'm not sure if I want, Anna, how are you feeling? Starting with Anna, and what's your takeaway today?
I feel great. I've been learning the experiments and experiences, what you guys have shared. I'm taking notes, lots of it, pages of it. Thank you so much. Yeah, and definitely I'm going to take this away with me when the new school is going to set up. Thank you so much. Okay, Henry, how do you feel? And
you're not going to ask Anne?
Take away today.
You can ask that first.
Sorry.
Ask me first.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
Just
While you're in
yeah.
the same room.
Take away.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, I actually got a fair bit of answers here, and I also found I'm going to have a meeting with my team, right, immediately after this for a few minutes, because a lot of the things that we have done has just fit into this whole Buckminster's Bucky's writing, right, and his philosophy. So I want to thank Stephen and it was John who talked about education for perfection versus education through discovery. We have been moving towards discovery, and you're right. There is a term for it. It's called classical education from the time of Plato, right? But it just got changed over time, and it became this education that is so rigid, right? But the other one is what Steve, was it Stephen? You spoke about, oh my God, you just put everything into perspective. I imagine I was at a talk, I had to give a talk to an engineering faculty up north. And what happened was the theme was entropy. I'm an English teacher. What the heck is entropy? Talking to engineering students, right? So, and I realized the macro and micro just converge today, right? So the macro is actually the Big Bang, not the Big Bang, right? And micro is on our personal level. Every time we learn, and it just keeps moving outwards, and that fractal, my God, this is just like crazy, right? And I also found my risk management, the certification, because we've been pushing the boundaries of education, but the certification is our risk management. It's for the parents. It's not for us. I don't believe in it. It has to be what we know, what we can do, but you want to reach the larger community in Asia, you need to go for that certification. I just realized it's the management of risk right there. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. Okay, Philemon, how do you feel and what's your takeaway?
This could have gone all day. I would have loved this. This call was one where I felt so comfortable and at home. It's like a tennis player plays in the game, and he sees the tennis ball as a basketball. Everything is just so clear. I probably can't communicate it as well as I could, but I'm very, very familiar and practiced with today's kind of topic in a sense. Like, just I've got so many notes. Like the macro, starting off, the macro, is the universe. The micro is me. Life is everything in between. Understand me, understand the universe. Know me, know the universe. Live me, live as intended by the universe. I've just got what John said earlier about entropy, John's definition of it. Lack of order or predictability at a gradual decline into disorder. When I read that, I go, shit, that's my life. That's how I do things. And then from the disorder, I tend to just go and make stuff up. I often say I'm making it all up. I don't know. I'm not working off a book. I make life up. And in the eyes of many people in society, I'm considered successful with the stuff I've got. But to me, based on my standards on what is possible, I'm nothing. I'm a blip. I'm a pimple on the arse of the universe, really, because people measure people based on stuff in that way. The Plato, the classical education that Anne was just talking about, being Greek and being very, very entrenched in the history of Greece, I live my life on know thyself, and I always have. And I'm not going to do what you tell me until I kind of understand it myself. And I teach a lot of 18 to 30-year-olds. I love that market, and I'm often called a hypocrite. Oh, but you said this is good for them, but why isn't it good for me? It's because the signs and the things that you have been saying out of the subconscious don't suit you. That's not you. Like, I'm not going to give you things that don't suit you based the language and the words you've been using over the last few weeks. But for her, it's perfect. Like, that's going to make her vibrate to her best self, into her universal self. But for you, if you do that shit, you're just an idiot. That's what school does. They do that shit. So yes, I am a hypocrite, and I'm a hypocrite every single day because I do what suits me. Don't do it yourself. Discover it for yourself. That's pretty much how I play. Oh man, I've got so many great notes here, and I don't want to just keep going with it because it's good. I'm in the thick of it with construction in Sydney at the moment. And when we spoke about how we make subconscious choices consciously, I have to say that's bullshit right now because I'm in it. We have the Prime Minister saying that he's not going to make vaccines mandatory. I'm in it, yeah. I'm not saying this out of the paper. Meanwhile, on site, they've got Super Sunday today at Sydney Olympic Park. For those overseas people, it's our kind of sporting hub of Australia. Well, one of the MCG could be considered as well. But anyway, they've made it for construction workers only. And in the last week, if you don't get vaccinated, you're not coming to work. The government is paying these people $750 a week. Their rent is upwards of $900. That doesn't include other costs of life. And every single one of my guys has gone and gotten vaccinated without no encouragement of me because they say, Phil, we need to go to work. We have no money. We can't feed our kids. So how do you make a conscious choice from the subconscious when you've got a double-barreled bloody shotgun pointed at your head saying, no, you can make free choice. Don't get vaccinated. But you know what? Starve to death. That's what, read between read the language. And I'm in that right now. And I feel so much empathy towards my boys because I've got cookies in my cookie jar. So I can I've got a bit of free choice towards me right now. But I also know, and I'm smart enough to know that those cookies are going to run out because they're going to take them slowly. Stanley, my friend, how do you feel and what did you get out of today?
Thanks, Philemon. I feel wow, right? Again, today's conversation, wow, mind-blowing. Everyone's had their own take and own perspective from this, from all your own rich experiences. looking at entropy, I'm looking at it from two perspectives. On one perspective, it's like it feels like it's chaos and order. So entropy is happening naturally, and everything is falling apart, and it's up to us to keep things together. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that like chaos and order are, again, two sides of the same coin, like yin and yang. As much as the universe is trying to put everything in this order, but at the same time, the universe is also putting things in order, right? Like look at our solar system, look at our constellation. These are all things that are in order within the disorder. And from another perspective is that, like, if you look at it, we look at the universe as expanding. That's why we say there's entropy. But could it be that we're looking at it just from one tiny little perspective, in the sense that perhaps the universe in its entirety, in its infinite lifespan, it is constantly contracting and expanding. But right now we are living in a point where it is expanding. That's why we're looking at everything in terms of entropy. So what if it's the other way around? What if, like right now we're experiencing the Big Bang, the universe is expanding, post Big Bang. But is there an event after this that would, move everything together and where things are going into order? So we don't know. So again, I'll leave this to you guys to ponder upon. Thank you. I'll pass it on to CJ. CJ, so how do you feel and what do you get out of it?
Thank you, Stanley. Just in time, just got home. Two sides of me. Number one is, yeah, screwed. Second one is, it's okay, life goes on. That's my dumbed down version of my realization today, that whatever you do, you're screwed. It's okay, life goes on. Just move forward with what you want to do. And there's a lot of knowledge here, especially when it comes to education. I can go on forever and ever. It feels like we just have 1% of the conversation today when it comes to the iceberg of education and how much it hasn't moved forward.
COVID lung damage. Now, before I begin,
Steve,
I'm not replacing you. This medical care. This is my opinion.
Steve.
All right, everything okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hurry on.
Thank you for that. So yeah, so I was talking about when it comes to education, it's a really long journey. Even I've been in it for the past 10 years, attempting to reshape it. And I guess maybe it's, God knows, how many generations of effort need to do in order to literally make it right. So it's a journey I'm willing to go forward with. That's the meaning I've defined for my life, and I really love today's topic. Okay, I'm gonna pass it over to Joseph. Have you gone?
No.
No.
Okay, Joseph, how do you feel
No.
and what do you get from today's session?
I have a ton of, I feel great. Thank you, CJ. And I have a ton of notes from this. I think this is the most notes that I've had yet, and I actually have to aggregate them and re-aggregate them in order to really fully understand them. But I really want to come back to something that one of the things that had stuck out to me is that we're born with capacity, but we increase our capability. And I appreciate that. And your story with you're talking about that student and then what it means to learn. I really, because you're increasing that person's capacity, and I wish I had somebody that would have taken me by the hand at a young age with that. And it's really touching actually to hear that story. The labeling, the calibrating, and relabeling as a way of measurement. That's something that I wanted to come back to. We didn't get a chance to come back to that, but that was something that Steve had brought up, and that was the idea of when we're trying to classify and think of how we bring order to things, and then how that process actually continues to bring order to chaos. Again, I'll just come back to, well, and the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious, and how do we overcome how do we design ourselves to overcome our subconscious and remove our bias. So that was another major point that I had highlighted in my notes here. And then the aggregation and reaggregation of data and how we manage risk. That's something I think about quite a bit, is especially when I'm thinking about chaos and order, is like, what's the real risk that we're taking with certain decisions that we're making. So with that, thank you, everyone. And Manu, how do you feel, and what are you taking away from today?
Yeah, I really feel just human in that life is in between two things. The universe might be screwed, as CJ said, but we are in between the birth of that universe and some kind of end to it. And we agree that our role is to try to live and decide to live and take risk in a way that reconciles locally the principles to which we are subject, which are general principles. Entropy is not something I have any influence over. I can only use it. Entropy is a generalized principle, like gravity. And I haven't got to have any confusion about that. It is a law. I'm living in the system. That is the law upon me. Now, the process of learning, I would define experience as being a subject of some event. And then experiment in casting forward, in taking risk in order to measure. And then in every situation, there's always going to be subjectivity and objectivity. I'm either going to be the subject or the object of something. So those things, they come together. I haven't got, and then the challenge that we always have. Steve talked about the octahedron, and I made a whole spiel about the octahedron equanimity, and it's difficult to be in that state of equanimity. That is, I don't want to use the word neutral because it doesn't exist. We have natural proclivities, tendencies towards things. But holding yourself in such a way that you can see the situation into many divisions, into many dimensions, like we talk about, allows you to learn in lag and cast forward better focus towards something that is desired. And I hope desiring is a betterment of all human for all. So the discussions today just highlighted things and the difficulties that we have into living. And we haven't got to spare the capability that we have that is innate, that is to decide. We've got to decide. And there will be many opportunities in life where we come in a state of almost limbo. They're in going this way or that way. We have to decide. We take one. And that we experience this. Hopefully it doesn't kill us. And then we learn from that. And that's really, really what I learned from today. Otherwise, I'm really appreciative of the exchange. And I repeat it every week, the no restraint kind of giving that everybody put themselves at risk of whatever that is returned to them into giving to this group. Thank you. Thank you all. So, Rufus, I can see your glittering beer thinking about really itching you to say something. How do you feel? What do you take away?
Thank you, Manu. I feel great, actually, great call. Again, what I take away is, again, when we discuss so many distinctions and calibrations in every single call we have, I take the importance of, again, my takeaway is understanding education. Education, the way it's being redesigned, is becoming actually quite challenging because, again, we're moving away from, bell curves and traditional certifications and all of that rubbish. I think when we talk about experience and experiment, and we base how we learn on actually how we manipulate reality and what happens outside of us, and which is actually happening inside each of us. And we make those distinctions and things like understanding capacity and capability. Because again, people have this feeling or this idea that some people are extraordinary because they seem to have this enormous capacity. But in fact, we all share the same capacity. I mean, the human brain is not that, if it's been properly nourished, is not that different, I mean, from the brain of a huge scientist or Nobel Prize from an ordinary worker. I mean, those brains are the same, again, properly nourished. And that's, again, that takes me back to this key idea about how we make sure that everybody from the time of conception is protected so that this design works the way it's supposed to work. We wouldn't start a problem, I mean, with all education in the world, with brains that don't work or function and they have the right capacity, how to explore and increase capability. So I think to me, if we try to solve a problem, we need to solve the problem of capacity first. But that's not to say we don't have to work on capability in the meantime. So what Anna and CJ and Stanley are doing is fairly critical. Because again, it's redesigning education, so education fits more into this design rather than just this conditioning. Do what you're supposed to do. I mean, you start very early in education. You need to ask permission to talk. I mean, that's so destructive in itself. I mean, why should you ask permission to talk or to view or to express your views? And that should be taught at a very early age. You have a voice, use it. And then again, manage the chaos that can create in the classroom or in a space where people learn. So again, I very much look forward to understanding more and more what Anna and her team are doing around education and how they're approaching all these critical problems and solving all the challenges. So that's my takeaway today. So Lisa, how about you? How do you feel about your takeaway?
Thank you, Rufus. I'd just like to say how grateful I am to everyone for the things that they share and the light bulbs that they cause to go off in my brain when they share them. So I'm really, really pleased I got on today's call. I think my biggest takeaway is just the things that we know that we don't realize we know, and therefore the decisions we're making, but we don't realize why we're making those decisions. And I think that's going to give me a lot to think about for the coming week, and all my notes that I've taken as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Nelson, how do you feel and what was your takeaway from today?
Thank you, Lisa. And I feel very, very well. Very grateful for this call. And I take away education is about increasing awareness about the truth and base it on experience and facts to make decisions that I feel and that I take away. Catalina, how do you feel and what do you take away?
Thank you, Nelson. Well, I still feel a little bit of a combination of emotions, but that's perhaps normal of the processing of reaching equanimity about what is and what is not. Takeaways. I like what you said, Philemon, that not identification, no judgment, and no justification. That's probably the type of decision that you reach when there's equanimity. You know, as I was thinking what you were saying, that in my personal experience, an accelerator of equanimity for myself to experiencing within my body is when I actually went to take a Vipassana meditation course, which Steve is very, very familiar with it, because for me was the ultimate experience of reaching equanimity within my body by observing myself and everything that goes around within, which is pretty cool. So thank you everyone for sharing what they shared, and it's kind of a light in the darkness, although there's more lights in the darkness that perhaps I give credit to right now today at Sunday 2:44 p.m. To see the work of Anna and her team do about the expression of the nourishment of the humanist spirit that they give to children, because it means that there's actually an actual opportunity to fully express and unfold humanity in the future, regardless of how, if it seems or not that we're gonna make it. So I think that's it. Pete, how do you feel and what you take away?
Thanks, Kat. I guess I'm feeling reflective. I'm in the process of looking in. I was thinking about the word education, and it comes from the Latin educare, and it actually means to develop within. And I find it, I don't know the word, but I find it something amazing that instead of teaching children to develop within, we teach them to be robots to recite, and we support that. And I think we can do better than that. I look at today's world, and I can only come to the conclusion that every single person on the planet at the moment is going through a spiritual initiation. And we are literally in the moment of history where we choose what future we're going to create for everyone. And on one hand, we have petty tyrants who want to control freak everyone to death and bully and dominate and use intimidation and blackmail and bribery and create medical apartheid and divide people with hate and shame. And on the other hand, there is a light of freedom, there is a light of love. And, you know, do we choose to be loving though we disagree? Do we choose to be respectful though we have, you know, 95% of stuff we agree on as a species, 5% we disagree? Can we be loving and respectful in that? And I really do think this is the time where if we listen to our spirit, if we listen to great spirit, the go within, you know, I think we could come up with wisdom. And I think wisdom is far more important than knowledge. And I pray that individually I come up with wisdom, and I pray that humanity comes up with wisdom, because I think if we continue to listen to the hubris of our ego individually and collectively, we're going to destroy each other. So I am reflective, but what I'm encouraged by, and I said it at the start of the call, is, you know, there's 15 or 16 people on this call who are figuring out, how do we design a world that works for everyone? How do we design a world that works on the principles of spirit? How do we design a world where everyone is respected, where everyone is fed, where everyone is sheltered, and we don't divide each other with shame and guilt and fear? So somewhere in the darkness, I feel some light. And Susan, how do you feel, and what did you take away from today?
Well, I feel grateful for kindred spirits and like-minded people, even if we don't always agree on all the details, like you said, Peter. I am in some soulful turbulence right now. I kind of hear in the background of my mind sometimes Kelly saying that energy always flows to the line of least resistance. Energy always flows. And yet I feel in integrity that I'm called to resist sometimes. This sort of thing has a date on it for me. And if I don't, I have one chance at appeal, but if I don't get granted that by a bunch of people who I feel have no grounds to judge me, then I have to decide between something that feels like a spiritual violation, or give up the chance to participate in what I felt is my life's purpose. And this huge avenue that I've enjoyed for so long about being able to meet other people where they have need and give the gifts that I have had a chance to develop and channel. So stay tuned, but it's nice to hear that other people around the world are not just doing what they're told and not thinking about it. Crazy times for sure. Joe, how do you feel, and you went. John Butler, how do you feel, and what are you taking away?
Thanks, Susan. I'm feeling great and grateful. Great because this has really been a particularly stimulating call for me. When I read the subject, I got excited because my aim is to steadily increase my awareness and to let go of any biasing which is not based on truth or fact or for my benefit. And I've had various involvements with education over many, many years and been exposed to different facets of education, from the perfection to the discovery. And it's interesting, Peter, you mentioned the root of the word education. There are two roots, two Latin roots. One is, as you say, to lead out. One is to, I'll just pull them both up. I had them both here. To train or to mould, in the sense of passing down knowledge and shaping youth in the image of their parents. The other is educare, meaning to lead out. And to a degree, our education system has had us in darkness. And I hope that we are actually coming into a period of greater truth and awareness and making more informed decisions ourselves. So it's an exciting time, also challenging. As Philemon said, what do you do about encouraging the people who work for you to have the jab or not, or what stand do you take, or making the decision yourself, Stanley? So we are being given increased responsibility. I think every time we learn a little more, we have a greater responsibility. And I'm just grateful that I can hang out with such a very mixed group of Hugh beings. Most of you anything but conventional. Kelly, you're responsible for all this. So thank you. And thank you all for welcoming me as part of this. So Kelly, who hasn't gone?
I think it's me now.
Oh, Kelly. So
Henry.
Hey,
Henry, trying to cut you out, Henry. This is
no, of course I'm going to cut him out. I was on the 1 yard line.
Henry, how do you feel?
Exactly.
Sorry,
Yeah, thanks. Is it because of rugby, Kelly?
Thanks, Sean. Great work. Yeah, really enjoyed the call, and it's good that people are sharing. Enjoy what you and your team are doing, Anna. I myself, I'm Chinese and have had traditional Chinese parents and understand the culture and what you're up against. So it's really good what you're doing is giving people more opportunities and growing them, and you know, everyone has their genius. Helping people find their genius is the key. So you're doing great work. Keep it going. A couple of other things that I did pick up on, and I know Kelly has spoken about this many times, and I'm not sure who made the quote, but environment is greater than will. Just be aware of that. What's your environment from a macro perspective? And what you know, are you willing to be in that environment, or do you need to go to another environment? Just something to think about. The other thing I did pull out of this was our most important task is to become as comprehensive as possible. I like that. By intellectual conviction and self-debiasing. That really is, I guess, the key. That's what I got out of this whole process. I really enjoyed that. So great call. Thank you very much. Kelly?
How about Steve?
No,
Steve,
don't give him a say.
Is it Steve?
I thought Steve started us.
Yeah, I thought we started us, and I'd be glad to talk for another 5 minutes and put Kelly under the bus.
Steve's been.
I'm already under the bus, but go ahead, Steve.
Really under the bus. No, we got to land the plane. Steve's been. Do you want to go again, Steve, or what?
Yeah, Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Yeah,
I'm honored to be with each one of you, and what a journey life is. And well, I love the idea of discovery. Thank you, John, for that. And Kelly, how you feeling? What you taking away?
Well, I'm feeling like I'm going to have to resist 90 minutes and recalibrate to 2 hours because it's happening whether I like it or not. And I do like to keep a trust. So time is very important to me. So from next week, hopefully we'll get under it instead of constantly going over it. So and it's about the timing of it. I actually feel quite good about today because there's so many things that are you can feel the sadness, right? And I don't know how else to put it, but it's actually quite sad. I'm really very sad for Susan, who's dedicated her life to medicine and now having to make that decision, or CJ and all the different people having to make decisions that they may not want to make. But in the end of it, it's like we're going to have to make those decisions. And you know, that's the risk for me. I'm that pragmatic that we'll just have to do that. I mean, I joke about, you know, we got to take care of Philemon. Well, I'm actually going to move down to his house because he's going to take care of me. I can see he's got the smarts. So, yeah, you know, Philemon, is there room for me down there?
You can move into the tent in the office here.
Yeah, good. A tent there will be fine. But again, this thing about managed chaos, I don't think we're here to manage chaos. I think we're here to create chaos and then look at what it's doing and then make some decisions around it. I think that, you know, we understand that things can be entropic. So let it be. Let's get out there and let's create chaos. For me, it's now 2:57. I apologize. Thank you, Steve. I'm 27. I didn't get quite to the 2 hours, but I'm gonna change my agreement so that I don't break trust. So thank you to everyone on the call. See you next week, and we'll have more no words. Go ahead. Someone wants to say something?
Nope.
All right. I'll see you. And by the way, the chat line at 49 is a record. I'll see you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.